Gospel music has always been held to a higher standard than other genres. The artists who perform it are expected to be more than musicians. They're supposed to be living examples of faith and righteousness. But behind the powerful vocals and inspiring messages, these performers are human beings, dealing with the same struggles, temptations, and failures as anyone else. When those private moments become public, the fallout can be devastating. The genre's relationship with secular music, questions about money and power, personal scandals, and debates over theology have created some of the most uncomfortable moments in gospel history. Here are 15 shocking moments gospel artists never wanted the world to see. The Newsboys scandal that shook Christian music. For decades, the Newsboys were one of the biggest names in contemporary Christian music, selling millions of albums and filling arenas worldwide. But in 2025, everything changed when multiple allegations surfaced against lead singer Michael Tate. According to reports, multiple men came forward alleging that Tate had sexually assaulted them, sending shockwaves through an industry that had long presented him as a role model. The revelations were particularly jarring because Tate had previously been part of another hugely successful Christian group, DC Talk, where he sang about faith and moral accountability. When Newsboys owner Wes Campbell resigned from the Gospel Music Association board, he insisted he had no knowledge of the allegations, but insiders questioned how such behavior could have remained hidden for so long. The scandal sparked a larger conversation about accountability in Christian music, with artists and executives struggling internally to process who knew what and when. The scandal raised uncomfortable questions about the corporate structure of Christian music, where bands are often owned and managed like franchises, with members rotating in and out while the brand continues. The controversy led major Christian radio chain K-Love to pull all music by both DC Talk and the Newsboys from rotation, effectively erasing decades of influence overnight. Kirk Franklin's profanity. Laced phone call. Kirk Franklin revolutionized gospel music by blending it with hip-hop, R&B, and pop, but in 2021, a recording of him cursing at his son went viral and threatened to undo years of goodwill. Franklin's son, Carrion, posted audio of a phone call where Franklin could be heard saying expletives and apparent threats, including language that shocked fans who knew him primarily through his uplifting music. The gospel superstar didn't try to deny what happened. Instead, he posted his own video addressing the situation, acknowledging the toxic family dynamics and his failure to control his anger. The relationship between Kirk and Carrion had been strained for years, with Carrion later sharing photos allegedly showing scars from childhood abuse. Franklin has been open about his own difficult upbringing and has spoken publicly about overcoming pornography addiction and other personal struggles. The phone call controversy revealed the gap between the polished public persona of a gospel artist and the messy reality of family dysfunction. While some fans rallied around Franklin, emphasizing grace and forgiveness, others felt betrayed by someone they viewed as a spiritual leader. When Kirk Franklin twerked on stage. Kirk Franklin found himself in hot water again in 2023 during the reunion tour, when video surfaced of him dancing inappropriately with gospel legend Jackie Clark Chisholm. Franklin twerked on Chisholm during a live performance, a moment that quickly went viral and drew sharp criticism from the faith community. What made the situation worse was that Franklin is a married man, and the behavior seemed to cross professional boundaries in a way that many found disrespectful. Franklin eventually addressed the controversy in a YouTube video, but his response left many questioning whether he truly understood the problem. He essentially said he plays too much and doesn't know how to separate his backstage personality from his onstage persona, which critics felt missed the point entirely. The incident raised broader questions about appropriate conduct for gospel artists, and whether Franklin's constant push to blend gospel with secular entertainment was causing him to lose sight of important boundaries. The controversy followed him to Jamaica in 2024, where he performed at a Christian concert in a tank top and shorts, gyrating and flexing his biceps in ways that conservative Christians on the island found deeply offensive. He later apologized for not understanding cultural sensitivities. B.B. Winans arrested for domestic violence. B.B. Winans, half of the legendary gospel duo B.B. and C.C. Winans, faced serious legal trouble in 2009 when he was arrested and charged with assaulting his ex-wife. According to an affidavit, Winans and his ex-wife Deborah got into an argument about custody issues when he became irate and allegedly pushed her to the ground, leaving her in fear of bodily injury. The incident occurred 6 years after their divorce, following 16 years of marriage. Winans was briefly jailed before posting a $1,000 bond. The arrest was particularly jarring given BB and CeCe's reputation as gospel royalty, having broken through racial barriers in Christian music during the 1980s and 90s. They were among the first African American artists to receive significant airplay on contemporary Christian radio stations. The duo had launched their careers on Jim and Tammy Faye Backer's PTL Club, where they gained exposure to millions of viewers before the Backers themselves became embroiled in scandal. The domestic violence charge cast a shadow over BB's legacy and raised questions about what happens behind closed doors in the lives of artists who preach love and righteousness from the stage. Tasha Cobbs, Leonard's Nicki Minaj collaboration. When gospel powerhouse Tasha Cobbs Leonard announced she was collaborating with rapper Nicki Minaj on a song called I'm Getting Ready, the gospel community erupted in controversy. Gospel fans and Christian leaders publicly criticized her choice to feature Minaj, known for explicit rap lyrics, on her album. The backlash was immediate and fierce, with many questioning how a worship leader could partner with someone whose public image seemed antithetical to gospel values. Cobbs Leonard defended her decision by saying she had seen the Nicki that exists offstage, and that person has a great relationship with God. She argued that her assignment was to reach a particular audience that might never experience God otherwise, and that thousands of people had told her it was the first time they bought a gospel album or felt God's presence. In a sermon addressing the controversy, she borrowed a line from the Real Housewives of Atlanta and defiantly asked who was going to check her. The debate represented a larger tension in gospel music about whether artists should collaborate with secular musicians, especially those known for provocative content. Some saw it as meeting people where they are, while others viewed it as compromising the gospel message for commercial success and relevance. Marvin Sapp's viral offering controversy. Gospel legend Marvin Sapp became the subject of intense online criticism in 2025 when video from a 2024 church conference went viral. In the clip, Sapp could be heard saying, "Close them doors," instructing ushers to close the doors while raising an offering, leading many to accuse him of holding the congregation hostage until they raised $40,000. The backlash was swift and brutal, with social media exploding with memes and accusations. Sapp received death threats, his church staff was harassed with profane phone calls, and his children feared for his safety. The gospel singer, known for the hit Never Would Have Made It, was forced to defend himself, explaining that the conference took place at a convention center in Baltimore, not his own church, and that closing the doors was simply to reduce noise from vendors outside, not to trap people inside. He emphasized that organizations raise money all the time and that he was simply fulfilling his role in helping to meet the conference budget. The situation highlighted how easily context can be lost when clips go viral and how quickly public perception can turn against religious leaders. Sapp eventually turned the controversy into an opportunity, releasing a new song called Close the Door and using his Easter sermon to address the situation directly. Yolanda Adams calls. God, Her, Him, and E. It, gospel icon Yolanda Adams, winner of multiple Grammy Awards and one of the best-selling gospel artists of all time, stirred controversy in 2025 with comments about God's gender. During an interview, Adams discussed the limiting ways believers perceive God, specifically regarding gender, saying God is not this small entity people are trying to make him or her or it, because God is spirit. The comments ignited fierce debate on social media, with traditional Christians arguing that God is clearly identified as Father in Scripture and that Adams was promoting dangerous theology. She went on to explain that God created diversity and variety, so why would people be surprised by anything God creates? The controversy reflected Adams' history of progressive stances within the gospel community. She has been a vocal supporter of LGBTQ people in the church, arguing that God is not surprised by anyone he created and questioning why Christians would disrespect what God loves. Her positions have put her at odds with more conservative gospel artists, including Kim Burrell, who wished Adams had called her privately rather than publicly disagreeing with her views on homosexuality. Kim Burrell's homophobic sermon. Few gospel controversies have been as explosive as Kim Burrell's 2017 sermon about homosexuality. Burrell preached that people who engage in homosexual acts are perverted and said they had been deceived by the homosexual spirit, warning that people who play with homosexual sin would die from it. The sermon was recorded at her Love and Liberty Fellowship Church in Houston and quickly went viral. The fallout was immediate and severe. Ellen DeGeneres canceled Burrell's scheduled appearance on her talk show, where she was supposed to perform with Pharrell Williams to promote the Hidden Figures soundtrack. Burrell's radio show was canceled by Texas Southern University's radio station. Pharrell publicly rejected her comments. For years, Burrell stood by her statements, insisting they had been taken out of context and that she was preaching against sin, not people. She even sold merchandise based on another controversial moment when she told a masked congregation member during the pandemic not to sing along with her, turning "Let that mask work for you" into a catchphrase. It wasn't until 2024, nearly 8 years after the original sermon, that Burrell finally apologized to the LGBTQ community while accepting an award, though many felt the apology lacked sincerity. Fred Hammond's friendship fallout. Fred Hammond, the gospel legend behind hits like No Weapon, faced unexpected backlash when he agreed to collaborate with secular artists. Hammond revealed he lost a couple best friends, a husband and wife team, who walked away from him and called him a sinner after he helped Snoop Dogg on a gospel track. The rejection stung, but Hammond didn't let it stop him. When Kanye West reached out to work on the Jesus is King album, Hammond didn't hesitate, despite knowing he might face more criticism. He explained that he came from the golden age of gospel in the 70s and 80s, when you weren't supposed to mingle with what the church calls people in the world. If they don't sing gospel exclusively, then you're trying to cross over. You're a hypocrite. God doesn't love you anymore. Hammond saw his role differently. He cared about Kanye staying on track and having hope to make it through the changes he wanted in his life. He knew the hardest thing for someone trying to change is when the people who should embrace you actually reject you. Hammond's experience illustrated the ongoing tension in gospel music between maintaining purity and reaching new audiences. Donnie McClurkin's sexual abuse lawsuit. In January 2026, gospel superstar Donnie McClurkin faced devastating allegations when a lawsuit was filed accusing him of sexual abuse. Giuseppe Corletto alleged in the lawsuit that McClurkin sexually abused him over several years during Pray the Gay Away spiritual sessions, beginning when Corletto was 21 years old. According to the lawsuit, Corletto had sought out McClurkin after reading his autobiographical book about overcoming what the pastor called the curse of homosexuality. Corletto worked as McClurkin's assistant and regularly traveled with him, during which time the alleged abuse escalated. The lawsuit claims McClurkin wrote an apology email years later describing himself as a desperate, dirty old man. McClurkin's attorney categorically denied all allegations. For years, McClurkin had been a controversial figure in LGBTQ circles because of his promotion of conversion therapy and his belief that homosexuality could be overcome through prayer and faith. He attributed his own attraction to men to childhood sexual abuse. On a 2021 episode of TV One's Uncensored, McClurkin admitted his past relationships included both men and women, and that he still has sexual urges toward men, but compares it to having diabetes and avoiding sugar. The Hillsong implosion. While technically not a gospel artist in the traditional sense, Hillsong's influence on worship music worldwide made their scandals impossible to ignore in the broader gospel community. The Australian megachurch and music collective faced a cascade of resignations and allegations involving founder Brian Houston and multiple pastors. The controversies ranged from financial mismanagement to inappropriate relationships and abuse of power. The Hillsong implosion was added to a long list of high-profile scandals in evangelicalism, creating a pattern that raised questions about celebrity culture within Christian music. The scandal affected not just the church, but the countless worship songs produced by Hillsong that had become staples in churches globally. Many congregations faced the uncomfortable decision of whether to continue singing songs associated with leadership failures. The situation illustrated how the line between church ministry and entertainment industry had blurred, with success measured by album sales, streaming numbers, and arena tours rather than spiritual fruit. Hillsong represented the pinnacle of the modern worship movement, where artists achieved rock star status, and its collapse sent ripples throughout the industry. The Glorilla Gospel Collaboration Debate. When rapper Glorilla released her album in 2024, one track stood out for an unexpected reason. Rain Down on Me featured gospel heavy hitters Kirk Franklin, Maverick City Music, Kiara Sheard, and Chandler Moore. The song was the only track on Glorilla's album free of expletives or controversial lyrics, yet it sparked intense debate in the faith community. Critics argued that gospel music has a mission-focused purpose to spread the good news of Jesus Christ, and that mixing it with secular messages dilutes that mission. Glorilla, who grew up in church and sang in the choir, saw it differently. She wanted to include something spiritual on her album, and the gospel artists were willing to meet her there. The collaboration represented a growing trend of gospel artists appearing on secular albums, from Lecrae working with Ty Dolla $ign to Tasha Cobb's Leonard's track with Nicki Minaj. Supporters argued these collaborations bring the gospel to audiences who would never hear it otherwise, while opponents worried about compromising the message for mainstream acceptance. The debate cuts to the heart of what gospel music is supposed to be: pure ministry, or a form of artistic expression that can exist in multiple contexts. Will Smith's BET Awards Redemption with Kirk Franklin. In 2024, Will Smith made his return to music with a gospel-influenced song called You Can Make It, and he recruited Kirk Franklin to help with his image rehabilitation. The performance at the BET Awards featured Franklin joining Smith, along with Chandler Moore and the Sunday Service Choir, on a song about redemption and perseverance, marking Smith's first music release in 19 years following his infamous Oscar slap of Chris Rock. The performance was elaborate, with portions of the stage surrounded by a ring of fire and red lighting creating a dramatic atmosphere. Franklin joined Smith halfway through with encouraging words about tough times not being everlasting. The collaboration divided opinion within the gospel community. Some felt Franklin was the right person to help Smith with his mea culpa, given Franklin's own history of public struggles and redemption. Others questioned the optics of using gospel music and imagery for what appeared to be career rehabilitation rather than genuine spiritual transformation. The incident highlighted how gospel artists walk a fine line when appearing in secular spaces, particularly when those appearances can be seen as endorsing or enabling behavior that conflicts with Christian values. The Maverick City Music Sound Debate. Maverick City Music exploded onto the gospel scene with a fresh sound that blended contemporary worship with urban influences, racking up multiple #1 albums and 5 Grammy Awards. But their success sparked a heated debate about the direction of gospel music. Norman Gaiamphy, CEO of the company that owns Maverick City Music, made controversial remarks suggesting traditional gospel artists over-sing and that choir music would not have died if people actually wanted to listen to it. Gaiamphy argued that Maverick City represented a perfect storm of black artists working with white writers and producers who trained them not to over-sing, creating content during the pandemic when everybody wanted God. The comments sparked backlash from gospel veterans like Marvin Sapp, who acknowledged the valid concerns about embracing the digital age, but took issue with how the message was delivered. Sapp noted he had witnessed and contributed to every major shift in gospel over nearly 4 decades, from vinyl to streaming, and that success didn't come from rejecting tradition, but from building on it. The controversy revealed generational tensions within gospel music and questions about whether innovation requires abandoning the vocal traditions that defined the genre. The Christian Music Accountability Crisis. The Michael Tate scandal opened a Pandora's box of questions about accountability in Christian music that went far beyond one artist. There have been inconsistent attempts to create accountability systems for Christian musicians over the years, including some bands bringing road pastors on tour, but these measures have proven largely ineffective. John Cooper, frontman of the rock band Skillet, told Christianity Today that if you're not committed to living in the light, you can just lie to your accountability partner. The reality, according to multiple artists interviewed after the Tate revelations, is that the Christian music industry doesn't care whether an artist is a good Christian or even a good person. Cooper warned that there's a temptation to trust people in Christian music because they're Christians or because they make faith-oriented music, but he learned through experience that industry professionals aren't necessarily more principled than their secular counterparts. The corporate ownership structure of many Christian music acts, where bands are essentially franchises that continue operating regardless of who's performing, creates additional complications for maintaining moral standards. Artists may report to managers and record labels rather than church leadership, leaving unclear who bears responsibility for addressing misconduct. These controversies reveal a gospel music industry in transition, caught between traditional expectations of moral purity and the realities of operating in a modern entertainment landscape. The scandals have forced uncomfortable conversations about accountability, the blurred lines between ministry and entertainment, and what happens when the messengers fail to live up to the message. Some artists have used their moments of controversy as opportunities for growth and genuine reflection, while others have doubled down or offered hollow apologies. What remains clear is that gospel music, like any genre built on moral authority, faces unique challenges when that authority is compromised. The question moving forward is whether the industry can develop better systems of accountability and support, or whether these patterns will continue to repeat themselves with each new generation of artists. For fans caught in the middle, the struggle is finding a way to appreciate the music and its message while acknowledging the flawed humanity of those who create it, of those who create it, of those who create it.